Round two, over to you guys, Steve and Luke. 4 for you to pick. We've got Dell, Virgin Atlantic, Ford, and Skittles. Odd one out, please.
I think Dell's done very well on, was it Twitter?
Yeah, the three of them, they've probably done really well on Twitter. So Skittles have done Twitter, Dell's done Twitter, and it's either Virgin or Ford.
I've seen something about Ford on Twitter as well, about the CEO.
Alright, so we're going
posting
for...
lots of...
Counterintuitively, it sounds like Virgin might be the one that hasn't done anything on Twitter yet.
Is there anyone from Virgin Atlantic in the room? Thank God for that. You're absolutely right. It is Virgin Atlantic. You're right. The other three have done particularly well in embracing social media. Insofar as you mentioned, Dell claimed to have raised their revenue by over $1 million by using Facebook and Twitter to sell products online that they were keeping in the warehouse. Ford has done very well indeed with a fellow called Scott Monty, who's the head of social media and has become an extremely well-respected blogger. And he talks about just about everything with Ford, the contents of his Caesar rap, the death of Carl Malden, visiting a museum dedicated to the Three Stooges, so no wonder that Ford are doing so well. And Skittles actually now do not have an official website. So if you go to Skittles, they're using Facebook for their main page. Everything else is going through Twitter, YouTube for all the videos, so they're kind of amalgamating in a Google Wave type way, I guess, all of their media into one spot and sending it out to over 1 million Facebook friends, presumably a lot of whom who have no teeth and ADHD. But Virgin, on the other hand, unfortunately, their employees started up a Facebook group and began criticising the airline safety features and calling passengers chavs. Management had to intervene, firing 13 people, describing their behaviour as totally inappropriate. That comes from Mr. Richard Branson, so you should know a little bit about that. But yeah, there we are. There's some companies who've done particularly well. Who else have you spotted who's kind of flexing their muscles well in this area? Seems to be quite a lot in the States we're hearing about.
Burger King. I quite fancy the Burger King Whopper Virgins. And the Burger King Sacrifice 10 Friends.
Ah, now this is where you get rid of friends.
A free Whopper, yes.
Yeah, so you get them off your Facebook.
And 20,000 people did.
This is in the UK?
I think that's in the States.
Is it in the States? Matt, what about you? You got anyone who you picked up on?
Yeah, I was having a look at what Best Buy are doing in the States at the moment, and they're doing some interesting things around recruitment using Twitter to try and find people with kind of very specific technical skills having conversations with each other at conferences on Twitter, which was interesting. From the other side of it, they're talking about doing something very interesting with customer service. That when you go into one of their shops, they'll actually have like a hashtag. Now, for those of you who don't know, a hashtag is something you can use on Twitter to kind of aggregate content. So when you search for something, so there's an AGR hashtag actually. So if you go onto Twitter search and you put in hashtag AGR, you'll see that 5 of us have been talking to each other in a very kind of lonely way about certain things at the conference. But anyway, they want to put a hashtag over the customer service desks with a code. So if you had bad customer service, you could actually expose it on Twitter, and their head of customer service is going to actually look at the stream and check each individual store has responded in public to each individual issue within a certain time frame, which I thought was a really interesting way of taking on a lot of issues head on. So I think they're doing some really interesting stuff, both kind of consumer-led and recruitment-led.
The hashtagging thing, just so you're aware, because I read an article yesterday about a company called Moonfruit in the States who asked users to put the hashtag on their brand, and they give away 10 laptops. That was it. They did it for a week. And they were the biggest trend on Twitter over Michael Jackson, over Wimbledon, everything else. They're a website design company in Wallet. They were right up the top. Let's have a think about with the Scott Monty thing. I find quite interesting because he talked very much about really mundane stuff, what he had in his sandwich that lunchtime, what he watched on telly that night, and his whole thing is about actually this presence you have to have is continuous, Ed, and it's not that you can't just do this campaign-based. If you're going to be out there, you've got to be out there long-term, and that's terrifying.
I think you need to have that kind of personality with Twitter, really. They constantly kind of talk about things which aren't necessarily specifically kind of selling stuff, just like what you're having for lunch or what you have for breakfast, or if you're hungover, that kind of thing. And it adds to you as a person and to your brand, and people kind of, that's what online's about, really. It's what social media is about. It's about personal relationships. And that's why I think that he's done so well with that Twitter account.
Because it's about him, not the brand.
Yeah, it's about him, but the brand kind of shines through because it's associated with him. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
There was a blogger at Google who a couple of years ago was writing from the heart of Google, and there was a great example where he was able to put recruitment messages in what he was doing. And one example was he blogged about going out and playing hockey. They were going out a hockey team, and he said right at the start, if you're not interested in hockey or don't work at Google, this probably isn't worth reading. Said all about the game, etc., etc. Got to the end of it and said, and if you're still reading this, then maybe you'd like to come and work here anyway, because this is the kind of stuff that we do, and it's all pretty cool. And so those sort of messages are there, and it's about that sort of honesty, and anybody that's interacting on social media nowadays, whether it's Gen Y, Gen X, I prefer to call it Gen C, which is generation content. Those people that are engaging, and they can be any age, but they're looking for that honesty, they're looking for that integrity, and if you've got a brand that you trust enough to sort of put up there and sort of showcase, then that personality will come through and do you a lot of favours because it's honesty.
But does that mean you've therefore got to put quite a lot of store in one individual, or can that individual be a character, if you like, and have a team of people behind it? Does that work, or do people see through it?
It takes a lot of investment. There's nothing cheap about it. Yes, you can go on any of these sites and you think, hey, it's nice and easy. It's not. And if anybody here has tried thinking up new things to say on their blog post, it's bloody hard work. You've got to set yourself some time every 2 weeks at least to really blog. And one of the worst things that I hate is going to a site and seeing that the blog has just fallen into disuse. And that happens a lot, unfortunately, within the graduate community, because they go, great, focus on starting the year, and then by December they've got their candidates, so they forget blogging for the... Well, unfortunately, the first year, second year students are still going to that website to pick up information, and they can see what that organisation's really about. It's about picking up a great idea and then just disregarding it, in my opinion.